This episode is brought to you by Gainesville Podcast Studio and Dynasty Solutions, a video production and live streaming company.
Good morning and welcome to another moment with Carmen Hood. We are in Gainesville, Florida today. I'm your host, Simon P. And today I have the beautiful Miss Sarah Livingstone. Did I say that last name right?
You did.
With us. Sarah, let me give you a little biography on her real quick. First of all, she's from New Jersey. What's your top rappers out that way? You don't mind me asking if you can remember any.
Tag. Don't put me on blast.
Don't put you on the spot.
Don't put me on blast. I've been an alternative kid. I was alternative. I was like indie before indie was a thing.
Okay. I like that. I like Andy Marie. But anyway, you have dedicated your life as a professional in the mental health field. She holds a master's degree in social work with a focus on management and leadership from Rutgers University, and a bachelor's degree here in the University of Florida with family, youth, and community sciences. She has a graduate certificate in human services management, but most importantly, through all the master's degree and understudy, her passion really showed when she became the founder and CEO of Are You Motivated? That's right. It is a company that provides mental health education and awareness, and her mission is to help companies create workplaces that prioritize mental well-being and unity. Ooh, you got your work cut out with you when it comes to unity, especially what's going on in today's environment.
Yeah.
She is very active in the community here in Gainesville, Florida. She's part of the Alachua County Child Abuse Prevention Task Force. She deals with the cyberbullying. She's part of the Alachua County NAACP Youth Empowerment Branch, the Akawaba Freedom School, and the Pace Center for Girls. And she's also a member of the Chamber of Commerce, Gainesville Young Professionals. But most importantly, in her downtime, I'm sniffing for the cooking. She says she enjoys cooking, dancing, and live music. Without further ado, we have Miss Sarah. Sarah, the first question we're going to come out the gate with you. What led you to this field of mental health?
Well, if I might say really quickly, a lot of the organizations that you mentioned, I've worked with. Mm-hmm. And so not for, but with. So I just want to make sure that I say that. But
let's get that out of the way.
What led me to this field? Well, it's a personal story. I was what we called spanked when I was younger. That's a term that's a lot. It's used often in the religious community, spanking.
Discipline.
Mm-hmm. Sparing the rod, or don't spare the rod. That was my experience growing up. I would go to my elementary school, and I had a school counselor there who I would go and I would cry in the morning, and because we were constantly hit because we were constantly misbehaving, So I would go in and cry, and she would say, I can get you help if you want. And I would continuously say, no, thank you. I don't feel comfortable doing that. And,
we know why we didn't.
Yeah,
we love our parents enough to.
Yeah,
I took plenty of them.
Yeah, and one day I did though. One day I went in and I was like, you know what, I've had enough. Please call. And so in New Jersey, it's called DYFS. That's the
DYFS is the program,
or that's at least what it was when I was younger. I mean, I'm 41 this year, but when I was younger, it was called DYFS.
Right.
And fast forward, after the DYFS workers left our home, the spanking stopped. And so essentially for me, when I was younger, she was a lifesaver, and she was a trusted person that I knew would be there,
right,
when I was there.
With their relationships, when you say it was in the home that it stopped, did they feel like I can't touch you because, or did they actually improve with finding different ways to manage how they want to get their point across when a child wants to, in your case, that you were a child at that time, when they wanted to have a corrective measure, when you didn't follow, say, rules or didn't follow what they needed to be done in the household chores or grades or whatever the case may be. How did that change?
Well, I think the biggest thing is they were doing the best that they knew.
Got it.
You know, a lot of times that happens with families is the parent or parents or guardians are doing what they've been taught, maybe what's happened to them. And so a lot of times they're doing the best they know. And so when a situation like that happens, when DYFS came in, that's like saying, no, this standard is lower than it needs to be, or this is not the standard. What you're doing is not appropriate.
So in Florida, that would be called, y'all call it DYFS, I believe we call it the Department of Children and Families, DCF. Right, they do the same thing. So they actually teaching a different method.
Yeah.
What they knew.
Well, you know, what's interesting is my dad and stepmom, my mother passed away, but my dad and stepmom, they work in a church. They work with a church, and they teach about not hitting your kids. Can you believe that? So it is find other ways to discipline. And so I think that is very important.
I hate to say it, Sarah, but I still kind of try to follow those ways. But if the last result is to tap you on that bottom, I still kind of believe that. Okay, I mean, so is that wrong? Totally wrong?
Well,
I mean, I try to go through those measures like as much as I can to kind of point that, hey, I need to grab you and get your attention.
Well, I think it depends.
Right.
I think it depends. You know, for us, there was we're doing this because we love you. And then the prayer possibly afterwards. Now that sounds good, but that can mix a kid up. And now pain is love and love is pain. And I know
I can see the relationship in it both, though.
Yeah. And for me, it didn't fare well because it lowered it desensitized me to just being touched.
Got it.
You know, if that makes sense.
That makes a lot of sense.
And so now you go into the world and you don't have this same reaction as maybe somebody who's not been harmed in that way.
Right.
You know, and so that is an issue, is that spanking abuse can change what the child is used to and accepts in their life. And so when you mix it with religiosity, it can become even more warping in the child's mind.
Right. Religion has a tendency to do that.
Yeah.
Religion has a tendency. Well, today, what does wellness look like to you?
Oh, well, you know what? I do want to say that because of that woman's influence in my life, a few years ago, I was like, why am I a social worker? I hate being a social worker. Why am I a social worker? And I think it was her. I think it was her impact that now I'm that safe space for people.
That answers your question.
Now I'm that safe space for people.
That lightning rod.
You know, during the day I'm in the school system. And so I have to say none of my views or comments are in any way those of the school board. But I do have to say I work in the school system with kids and I'm able to provide that space. And then with my company, I'm able to give that that feeling of, you know, I am here for you individually, although we're in a group.
Well, you know, minus all the paperwork, maybe why you might dislike it, but the overall passion of helping people reach that destination of peace and calmness in their minds. You know, I can see the passion and I can see why. So being that you're currently working with children now somewhat, what skills do you kind of give those children? Because you mentioned that in New Jersey, the program helped show your parents a different skill set to not discipline by way of, I'm gonna tap that behind. And but when you're dealing with children, because it all really starts there, give an example of some type of skills you may give a child that's in a situation. And I know those situations still occur that happen to you, but there are others. I mean, just give an example of that.
Okay. Well, a child that might be being hit. Is that
correct?
Okay. Well, first
hit,
of all,
abused, sexually,
abuse,
yes,
any type of abuse,
broken family. It goes.
Yeah. Confidentiality to a point.
Oh, yeah.
Okay?
No names.
If you're going to hurt yourself, someone else, or you're being hurt, that's when confidentiality is not there. I need to get you help. And so that right there is, where confidentiality is for the kid. But the thing is that also gives them that space that my counselor gave me to know that, wait a minute, if I am struggling, I know someone who will make that call. But I'm limited in what I can do when they get home, right?
Well, how do we handle, like, when the victim cries out, there's always two sides to a story.
And that's the thing. There's two sides. And so you can't try to fix the kid.
Correct.
You need to work in partnership with the family.
Okay.
And so it's very important when you're dealing with a situation like that is not to criminalize the parent right away, but to see what might be missing in their lives, what might be missing with the family. Is it resources that they need? There are huge stressors, and like even what I'll get into later, there's good stress and there's bad stress, and a lot of the bad stress can be like finances.
Right. Well, when you mention the word criminalize, that's one of the reasons why stuff is kept within, because you're automatically thinking of the criminalization. And the child may love their parents.
And that's you're right.
And how do we,
there's that fear there.
That's that fear.
But what I've found is approach is the biggest thing. Okay. No matter the situation that's come up with kids, for some reason, it has worked itself out that the parent is willing to talk.
Okay.
Because I'm willing to talk. And the thing is with the kid,
I like how you say
I'm able to say, hey, listen, I want to see if I can help in any way. It's not about getting them in trouble. It's maybe, are you eating? How's that going?
Like here in Florida with DCF, or Department of Children and Families, it's just like IRS sending you a letter. So you automatically thinking it's a whole lot of negativity coming behind this situation. And at that time, it probably infuriates an adult to say, I'm trying to do my best. And you're marking my lifestyle or my record. This is going down in the record.
Yeah.
So when I asked you earlier about what are the things that you use for the skill, I like how you came to the fact that it's my approach to the situation.
Yeah.
That you're here to try to deflame the situation as much as possible so we can have decent conversations.
Exactly.
To find the root of the problem.
But then also, what's it impacting now? Like how is it playing out in your life? Yes, that's when you're home, but you're at school right now. Is that impacting your grades, your behavior, your attendance? Is it impacting how you connect with other people? Your social scene? Are you isolated? Things like that. So if you can take care of the family, but then also touch on the things that are the result of
it.
You can really help.
Work out. Now, that's one population that I see you helping with, the children. And so actually you stretched out.
Yeah. Yeah.
You're helping rear the children to become the adults that potentially will be walking into some of the things that you're doing in the employee space. And, you had a quote, not a quote, I'm going to not say that, but it says 16.8 billion. Was that revenue lost in employee productivity that was related to stress?
Well, related to burnout. And I'm so happy that you said that, like that, related to stress, because burnout, it's chronic, unmanaged stress in the workplace.
It's chronic, unmanaged
stress.
Let me back up. You got stress, and we have burnout.
Yes.
So in my head, they're the same.
But they're not.
But they're not. Okay.
Exactly.
All right.
But to your point, you have stress and you have burnout.
Okay.
So stress is too much on you. Okay. You're just feeling bogged down. But burnout is not enough.
I'm thinking burnout. Just say, hey, I'm tired of this shit.
Same. Well, you can feel that way. You can feel that way because of the stress that's on you. But the actual feeling of being burned out, where you can start to find healing, is when you start to fill your cup. Because burnout is about not enough. So it's like that adage about enough. I would have never thought it had an inverse. Yes.
Of what I thought the word would say.
Yes.
And you're saying
it's
not enough.
It's important to know that, because we go around thinking that it's stress, and we're trying to decrease stress rather than like pouring into ourselves, finding things that can pour into us, to help build us up.
Build us up in what way? Because like I say, when I hear burnout, I'm actually thinking I'm tired of it. I had enough.
Yeah.
I can't take no more.
Yeah. Well, the thing is, when it comes to burnout, there are so many things that it impacts, and there's so many things that it causes, that filling ourselves up really like saves our lives in many ways. Because when it comes to burnout, you have everything from depression and anxiety to stomach pain. You have
stomach pain
to stomach pain, unexplained pains, headaches. And you've also got type 2 diabetes. And heart disease are risk. You're at risk when you're burned out.
Normally, I would think those symptoms that you related on signs of burnout, I just related it to stress. And you're saying, no, look at it from a different approach.
And when these things are chronic. So when the stress is chronic, when the stress is prolonged, and then you have these symptoms that are chronic and prolonged, that's when you're like, is this burnout? It's not when you get one stomach ache. It's when like you are continuously falling into illness.
I noticed you mentioned the stomach pain, the body aches, but some of the things I want to touch on, you said keeping away from colleagues, feeling tired all the time. Well, I might be feeling tired because of my age.
Me too.
But I like this, especially when you're working with employees. You mentioned losing motivation and a sense of purpose.
Yeah. Well, okay, there are dimensions to burnout, and some of the loss in some of the detachment we experience is found in one of those dimensions. And so we've got our exhaustion, which is our mental, physical, and emotional exhaustion. So exhaustion is like an umbrella term, but it has those in it, the physical, mental, and emotional.
Right.
But then you have this detachment that happens in the second dimension, where some people call it something called depersonalization.
Depersonalization. Okay.
And that is where you are detaching from, or you've detached from those you're working with, from the clients or patients you serve, and from your purpose. You get detached from that. But then some people say that's the second dimension. Others say it's cynicism. And cynicism is when you're feeling distrust. It's when you're not sure things are going to work out. And the last one would be inefficacy. And that is where you feel like your accomplishments aren't accomplishments. You start to feel that when people say great job, it's like, I didn't do a great job. And so although that second dimension, people are like, is it depersonalization or cynicism? That's irrelevant. It all can get you caught up in this cycle of burnout.
Well, those three words that you mentioned, I've never heard of them.
Yeah.
So if I haven't heard, I'm pretty sure there's a lot more that didn't have an understanding. So I'm going to have to go make me some flashcards and write those meanings down, and to see if I can help identify those things within myself, and just so people that be around me are those who I come in contact with to say, hey, you might need to check this out a little bit. So that's very great information. So when it comes to, we're gonna stay on the burnout for a while.
No, please. That's the heart. That is the company.
What causes burnout? And you mentioned tough deadlines, fast changes at work, and I thought about fast changes at work. I'm thinking like, well, what about everybody that's with AI coming out and how technology changed. And every time you go from a different job, there's a whole different set of databases that you have to learn. This is with paying your bills. Okay, what was the password to that? What was the password?
Oh my God! Yes.
Yeah, it's a whole lot, and I really connected to that because it's moving very fast out here. And then you have the disagreements with coworkers or supervisors.
Yeah,
and that's that nail in the coffin that I was like, how are you circumventing that through your business? Because as a employee, and how do I go to my management to share my mental disgrief, whether it's about the work, but it's definitely you don't feel comfortable to talk about what's going on personal.
Well, okay. So when it comes to the disagreements, it's a very similar approach to daytime, my daytime job with the kids.
The approach.
I mean, the approach is everything. So when you're talking about disagreements, it's like, okay, well, what are disagreements causing? Okay, so you're going to look at it from that side of things. What has it caused? How can we help with those things? So it has caused isolation. You know, it has caused me to internalize my emotions. It has caused me to start yelling. So when we start looking at those things in a group setting, without somebody saying, I yell, but examples being given and you can comment on that example. You know, when you start seeing that, okay, this is how I can deal with these symptoms, you're in a group. And so we're not separating the employees from the managers. So everyone is in there. And if you're growing individually and everyone's in this journey, you are now connecting to one another. So it's not about necessarily going to your manager about a grievance. That's something that, yes, you're going to have to learn how to do that. But that's not the work that's not the heart of the work. The work is that individual work and connecting people to one another. And that's where you're going to see communication open up.
Right.
You know, there was a lady the other day who told me that she noticed a coworker was struggling. And they're both in a department that Are You Motivated is working with. And she noticed she was struggling. And she said, hey, girl, you know, remember. And she reminded her of some of the things that we had talked about. And she's like, you can do it. And that's an example. That's an extremely direct example of what can happen when we're working individually as a group.
Well, I see two things kind of working simultaneously here. The first one you pointed out is the approach.
Yeah, approach.
So with approach, it has to be effective communication. So is there some type of guidelines that you have with using the approach as well as the communication? Like when you say communicate, it's like, okay, do I observe the person body nature to try to see
how I communicate with them in the group?
Right.
Oh, that's a great question.
To get them to loosen up.
Oh, that's a great question. Okay, so that's where the model comes in. APH.
Got it.
Okay, so APH talks.
Mind telling us exactly what APH is?
Exactly. So A stands for assessment. P is for present and discuss. Little d. And H is for help.
Help.
Now, the reason why, well, of course, I want to tell what the model is, but it's so important right now with what you're talking about because the communication starts with the assessment. And that is an anonymous survey. We are a third party giving this survey. And we're asking questions that might not be found on your depression scale.
Right.
You know, and so now we're able to get information. And it's very important that we work with companies that have 20 or more employees.
20 or more
20
employees.
Or more. Because if you have under 20 employees, I mean, I feel like I know that Tiana might have said that because she's the only one who has kids, you know, or I'm sure Bill, you know, it's too small. But if you have a group 20 or more, now you have people feeling like they can have anonymity. When that's there, I can take that information into the P, which is the present and discuss. I facilitate discussions. That is the presentation.
Well, you know, anonymity, reality, I'm thinking it's two ways. When you're on a job, of any job that I have, I feel like there's the owner who you never see. Then you have his manager that don't want to see you. And the only thing he's telling you, this is what we black and white. This is what the rules are. This is what we're doing. And I'm looking at tests. I'm looking at results. And so with that, most of the findings of your work will just be touching the employees or how much of this burnout actually happen to managers as well, because that's a high turnover of both.
Yeah.
Managing people, which is difficult. It's just like being a father or a mother that at the end of the day, nobody give you a script book on those things. You just, once it happens,
Good point.
it just happens. So there's no script book to say follow these guidelines to be a dad, follow these guidelines to be a mother, follow these guidelines if you're a single mother or a single father. There is no guidelines. You just go through it. And how are you bridging the gap between the two with management and employees, because they have to work together? The owner really just he's just, I'm studying my numbers. I come down when the number's not right.
Yeah.
So you don't get to see him, but I know
Or her.
I know or her, but you do know that they will feel like this is important, because whenever there's a cohesiveness going on, the productivity seems to get a little bit better, whatever situation. So I like how you kind of mentioned that with the how we act, how we approach people, and then how we communicate when we do the approach.
Well, I will say a lot of those in higher levels of the company, owner or, whoever it might be, tend to think things are going better than they are.
That's
Tend
the
to
person.
think there's more satisfaction than there is.
That's the impression that you mentioned earlier.
But the big thing about really kind of leveling the playing ground between managers and employees is there's no separate survey for management.
Okay.
There is for employees. We are all people. We are all working.
We're all the same.
And to your point about parenthood, I'm not a parent. What I've seen is that, say you have a kid who just turned 5.
Correct.
And this parent is feeling like, judged because they don't know how to do things. They're frustrated with themselves because they don't know how to do things. It's their first time being a parent of a 5-year-old. You have that manager. They have a new person come onto the job. And if they're going at it like with everyone else, that's not going to be effective. If we're not seeing each other as individuals, we're not able to then meet that need. This is your first time ever working with that person.
Right.
This is your first time managing now 22 people.
I wonder if it would be a wise thing to have your assessment as a manager completed on employees. That way, when they're hired, would it be a good thing to have that assessment to help make that decision if this type of person would fit what we're looking for?
Oh, I see what you mean. Like give a survey to people who onboarding. Well, some companies do that.
Right.
But yeah, that is an interesting concept. Just seeing, how are they gonna fare? Are they gonna fare well with this company culture? Allowing them to see. I think if you do an approach like that, you're allowing the interviewee to be in the seat as an interviewer at the same time. So they're able to see, is this a company whose values that I have?
It helps both sides, employee and employee.
Is this person I'm talking to, do they seem, you get that gut feeling about someone sometimes.
Right.
And you want the job so bad that you kind of don't even pay attention to your feelings, And so, to your point, that would be a great idea. And some companies are doing that.
Mm-hmm. Or if not, maybe have it, how they have a safety training? I don't know how often those are regulated, but I can see this being regulated that maybe every now and then we need to have a 4-hour detox every quarter, at least 2 times a year for these skills and teaching these approaches that you're aware of to be shared amongst individuals where everybody can leave the classroom and don't feel biased and say, I learned something from Sarah today.
and to your point, more than one time.
More than one time,
so you can bring Are You Motivated in to do an APH talk one time. However,
It's more effective.
It's more effective if it's more than one time, because there are so many places to go with burnout. There's so much content in burnout. You got resilience, you have the hierarchy of Maslow. Like, there's so much family needs. There's so many places to go that if you're trying to pack it into one time meeting with the employees and management, you might not get everything that they need.
No. And when you're doing it one time, it's like an interview. It's one time you're doing whatever you can to get the job. You're at your best behavior to see why you need to be. Then once you get in, it's just like a marriage or something, or a relationship. Once you get in, now you get to find out everything.
But
now you get to find out.
Yeah.
Take it or like it, or learn to deal with it. That's how it
goes. I do want to
goes.
say something really quickly. There is work in between. So if you have those, for the program. So if you have those more than one touch points, there's continuing education in between.
I'll continue it.
We're not just leaving you hanging until the next presentation. There's continuing education.
Got it.
That is something people go. You have that monthly talk, that monthly charge up session. And
it's needed.
Getting you through the next month.
It's getting you.
And now we're tackling a new part of burnout.
Right.
And you keep going.
You're like a silent counselor.
In ways.
In a way.
Mm-hmm. I'm careful not to step into the seat of therapist.
Right.
And be the person with the social work perspective, be the person giving the skills, be the person empowering. Because that's the biggest thing is is strength-based approach. We're talking about approach again. And so just showing people you already have the ability to meet your needs. You have the ability, but you might not have the resources or the skills.
Correct. Here's a question I have for you. It says, what does people get wrong about mental health? And then why do you think it became so long to become a topic of discussion? It's not only overall society, but we mentioned that men, we tend to handle our stuff on our own and feel like, hey, I handle it on my own, or hey, me and my God are working out ourselves. And
oh my God.
Yeah, I mean, you hear me and God to handle this. I really don't need you for that. I really don't want to share my personal business with somebody I don't know, because that's been the hold up. And then just the shame of to say I have this going on, but the society looks at it like this, and I don't want to be clumped in that particular negative viewpoint, because we have that. I don't want to get into how they say stand on your own mentality.
Yeah,
and you're teaching, hey, this is when you're working as employees at at your job. Like that's not on your own. That's a team, and a lot more always get done with a team anyway. It's like my team to try to do this particular moment of session with you. My team is Dynasty Solutions with my homie Nehemiah Harmon that helps bring this together. That's my team to do this. It's not just me by myself. So what do you say to men who have that? We kind of macho, like, man, I don't want to hear all that. Well, women are listen. Women tend to listen more. I need to write that down. Listen. That's part of that communication that you were talking about. Yes, listening.
And I think something that's very misunderstood about mental health is people think mental health is something to take seriously only if you have mental illness. And that even comes into the conversation about therapy. People are like, oh, that's for the mentally ill, But behind closed doors, 1 in 5 people have mental illness. Just saying. So it's a lot more prevalent than and that's mental illness. That's not mental complications. That's not stressors, But when it comes to men, that is a great question. Some things I have found in research are that men tend to externalize when it comes to being burned out. It might, and women tend to internalize. So women,
You might give an example.
Yeah.
Since I'm a man, when you say externalize,
so
like,
women might they're going through they're fatigued. They're going through not wanting to come into work and not able to come into work, coming in late, leaving early, the stomach pains, all of that. They internalize a lot of times, and that can cause physical and mental consequences. Men with the externalizing, a lot of times that can look like outbursts or irritability. It can look like anger.
I think I was guilty of that.
It can look like anger.
I speak my mind a little bit and come off a little angry, but I was just like, I don't care how you feel. Now you understand how I feel.
and
so my approach has to change. That's cost me some relationships. Not that I was a bad person, but the approach and the effective style of communication probably several relationships in the past.
Yeah, and to your point too about just what can cause men to not be open in the societal pressure of just being what is considered strong.
Oh yeah.
And speaking up and speaking out and getting help can be seen as weak.
Yes.
So wanting to either participate in a group session.
It's like weak. You consider that like that's a feminine problem.
That's what it.
And you don't want to be associated that you acting like a female.
That's what it seems the feeling can be there.
Right. It's there. It's reality.
Is it?
I mean, yeah,
okay.
it's reality.
Yeah.
I've had instances where you feel like, hey, I probably told a couple of my sons that hey, as I growing up, I say it's not. I may have said it wrong, but this how it is, and try to water it down. And then when you look at from generations, it's just like playing football. When you used to play football, it was okay to say, if he come across that middle catching that football, you better knock his ass out. And now the new change is, we're trying to protect the player that may be vulnerable, but it's like back in the day, hey, you on the field, that means you know that it's a violent game. And that's how kind of life is. My life is tough. It's not how the word they say when they say equality. I'm like, I don't think equal is, you can't. It's a social status and the income. So. Therefore, equality will never be there. So when an employer and a manager come in and get employees, those things never equal. They're never equal. So, I know from me being a man myself, I grew up when a lot of things were considered to be weak or feminine in nature. So you tend to internalize it.
Yeah.
To say if I do try to say something about it, I'm gonna be ridiculed or looked at a little differently. So you avoid it at all cost. And those cause those factors that you mentioned earlier about the burnout factors by internalizing all these things.
And there's also something called health literacy.
Health literacy?
Health literacy. So where you have the facts and the information that the health information that is necessary to make decisions. Okay. And so a lot of times men, according to research, have less health literacy than women. Now the reason why I mentioned that is because it's very much tied into the resistance to get help, the resistance to health care. How are you going to become literate in a subject matter without talking to an expert in that field? So it's like you don't learn to bake from a mechanic, and you don't learn to learn what's going on with your car from a baker. And so,
I think it comes from the lack of trust.
Well, yes. And so
that's the issue, the lack of trust.
There's a lack of trust there, and so when there is not trust, you're not getting into the doctor. But when you say trust, I really want to touch on Black men. Okay, so
I was going to go there.
I do want to touch on Black men. In the Black community in general, it's mental health is very taboo. The subject of mental health is taboo. Others might not. But with men, there's a history to it. And it's the Tuskegee syphilis study in 1932. Right. So from 1932 to 1972, there was this experiment that was done with men. Okay. And there was no informed consent. They were promised free meals, burial insurance, and free medical care. And so these are things that would, entice someone to want to get help. And so some of the men had syphilis and some didn't. But then in 1943, there was a cure, right? Penicillin. However, it was not offered to them. And so many men died. Of the 600, about 128 died.
And a lot of us know that story.
Yes. And the women were infected and the children that were born. So not to get too into that, but we a lot of times don't know why we have resistance to certain things. So if you see that you weren't taken care of, your community was not taken care of, a lot of times it trickles down. So you might see as a man that for some reason you don't want to go to the doctor. You don't believe in medicine. Your father never went to the doctor. He didn't believe everything's going to heal itself. There's no need to go. Your grandfather, and you don't know why, but might have gone back to things
it
like
really
that.
Goes back to the issue of trust.
And it goes back to trust. It really goes back to trust.
If you're saying you're African American, and if you're tracing your roots back to Africa, you said, well, they use herbs, and Caribbean use herbs and different things, and the diet was totally different.
That's true.
Than what we are exposed here. So you have that stigma in your head. Like, why should I trust where I'm hated?
Yeah.
Because if most of your doctors don't look like you.
Yeah. And so that's another deterrent too.
That's another deterrent to say, I'm not going, man. I don't want to. I know when I go, you automatically feel like if you didn't find nothing wrong, you couldn't sell this drug. We have those mentalities. So we like high blood pressure is a silent killer.
Yeah. And that also is an effect of burnout.
Right. That's an effect of the burnout.
A symptom.
The symptoms. And, most men and most, it's like when they say that it's more prevalent in the African American community. And I'm like, well, you can see why.
But that's
you can see why. So you can see how deep that is your trust really is.
It's huge. And that's where the health literacy comes. If you're not going, you're not seeing what are the things that I'm experiencing. What does that mean? Because even when you're thinking about burnout, you got to go to the doctor to rule out medical conditions. So when you're experiencing a lot of these symptoms, you need to first find out what's going on with me. And so if you don't have that health literacy, because you're not seeing that doctor, you don't know necessarily what's going on with you, if it's okay to be going on with you.
I think these days you almost have to have like 3 doctors.
Being a therapist.
You got your general, you have your general doctor, and then you have your herbalist type doctor. Yeah. Because I think your herbalist type doctors,
I do believe that's needed.
Yeah, they do try to find ways to prevent as opposed to this. Yeah, we'll see if this will work. Let's try it and come back in 90 days and we'll test you again, run some more lab work on you and see if that works. Oh, okay, that didn't work. Well, that didn't work. Let's see if we can help this pharmaceutical coming out. I mean, that's just how people feel. And then the third doctor would be that holistic doctor that can help handle this and help your type of work would be important as well as whatever religious background people decide to choose. I think the mental health issues, the stress, people that like yourself that teaches you how to manage your internal are very valuable in all situations. Sometimes I wonder about when we watch sports, let's just say basketball or tennis, since the crowd is so on them when they're playing, and football, they're so on them when they're playing, but yet they have all this great expectations, millions watching, and it's like, wow, I wonder how mentally they get prepared for that every single game. And some people say, well, if I got paid $1 million, I probably can do it too. But I'm like, no, it's a little bit more into it. It's like when you see the great ones be great, it's like, wow, what did it take to be great every time? You expect it to be great every single time.
Yeah, a lot of pressure.
So anything else with pertaining to men that you think that, I know you mentioned the health literacy and the trust on why we tend to drag our foot. And I think that's just a male, not this, that's just out, this male's period. You know, you hear that across all ethnic backgrounds that women say, all men kind of slowly go and want to get that help, or just don't want to slow down enough to get it.
Well, I think the first one that you said some time ago, that societal pressure, I think that's the missing piece. You know, you have, that's huge. You know, this feeling of, I need to be this for my family. I need to be strong for my family.
No days off.
If I find out that I'm sick, you know, then who's going to be there for my family? So I'm not going to go to the doctor because I don't want to find out I'm sick.
Well, I think when you find out, I remember when AIDS first came out. That's a good example of, I don't want to know. You know, people are like, I don't want to know.
Yeah.
Which I don't want to know. Yeah. Well, it adds that
going
stress.
on with you, it's still going on with
yes,
you.
It adds that stress.
It does add that stress.
That stigma, or that, I guess, time when when somebody tell you that this don't change, that time may go, and it's like, who want to think about? It's like I said, life insurance. So nobody want to talk about death.
Yeah, nobody wants.
So that's what it is when they go to the doctor, I think. Nobody want to be told. It's like, man, just let me live.
Yeah.
Right, just let me live. So great. Anything else you want to add that you suggest for men? You suggest that we get some literacy to go seek it, and just to open up a little bit.
Other suggestions for men. I think there can be things that are done while at work. You know, if you are able to have a space, and this is women as well, but for men, if you're able to have a quiet space for even 5 minutes, you can do a 5-minute meditation or a 5-minute breathing exercise.
Do you teach the breathing exercises?
I'll teach the breathing exercise. Yeah. There's something called box breathing. So it's like you fill your lungs for, 4 seconds, hold it. So start over. Okay. So okay. Breathe in 4 seconds. Hold it. Breathe out. Hold it. Breathe in. Hold it. Breathe out. Hold it. One more time. Breathe in. Hold it. Breathe out.
Okay. That was I saw the box as your hand was.
Yeah. And the thing is, what you can do is at work is draw the box.
Draw the box.
Draw the box and trace it with your fingers.
Because the box lets you know that you completed the exercise through the box for
it's 4 seconds each way.
Each way, yes.
And so that's something you can do. That's something men can do as well. And you can still feel strong in that you are taking action.
That's recommended a lot. The meditation and the breathing in and out and closing your eyes. Sometimes meditation is more harder than you think, because when I think of meditation, I think of how many things race through my mind while I'm trying to meditate.
Which, oh my gosh, yes. Yeah.
I don't know if that happens.
Well,
when I close my eyes and I try to, it's like when I sleep, I got it.
Yeah,
meditate. It's meditation. It's like, how many things are running through my mind?
Yeah.
I feel like I had to start over, and it's like it take a while to get to that point to calm the mind.
Yeah,
where it's not thinking about so many different things.
Yeah,
that's going on at that time.
Yeah. Well, with that too, it's so I don't meditate because I don't meditate because it frustrates me. So I found other ways to deal with my stress. But if you choose to meditate, there's something that is advised, which is to allow the thoughts to pass through your mind. So not to try to halt.
To halt it.
allow it to pass.
Yeah, I be trying to halt it.
Allow it passage.
Because I be thinking the meditation, I'm supposed to be this total clear mind, defogged, detox of everything, finding that peace. And I know there's a connection with nature. How do you feel about nature when it comes to that?
Nature. Nature is very, very helpful. Being able to be in nature, being able to take walks gives you the exercise. Being able to get outside gives you the sun, possibly. I don't know if it's sunny. In Florida, right? But
it's a little different than that New Jersey heat.
A little different.
You get it more months.
Yeah,
more months.
Gosh. Yeah,
you don't get 4 seasons here like you do from New Jersey.
yeah.
You get the burn.
So definitely being in nature, very helpful.
Very helpful, very helpful. Any particular industries where you see there's more stress than others?
Well, health industry. And originally burnout was like the concept of burnout was within the healthcare industry. And then soon it became occupation agnostic. So it wasn't just specifically healthcare. It can be found in any occupation.
Right.
But a lot of times in healthcare, and the reason is it's a high touch job. And so high touch is where, each person you are meeting with, you need to start over. You need to start over.
Right.
And you need to individualize the service and be who you need to be for that person.
They always say that RNs across the board don't get paid enough, from the CNA, from the LPN and the RN. You lump them together, and they're doing exactly what you're saying, from room to room, from room to room. And the burnout comes when they just say, you know what, everybody the same. That's how I'm going to treat it.
And then that's when you get that detachment.
That's when you get that detachment
that's
from the field.
That's when you get that cynicism.
Yes.
That's when you start to break away from your purpose.
I think teaching is similar like that too, for those that are teachers in the classroom.
And that's where you get your underpaid and stressed. Right?
Underpaid and stressed. That's where it comes from.
Yeah.
Exactly. So it as important as the two professions that you mentioned, sad to say that they are underpaid.
Yeah.
It's like when you're in the nursing field, you're responsible for someone that's sick.
Yeah.
And that's all day, 8 hours. And when you're in a classroom, you're responsible for, I guess, making America great by making sure everybody is much more educated than what were when they came in.
Yeah.
How much does, your research-based studies intertwine with the employee's actual reality? How much of that data is actually used to help coincide with the employees or managers' reality?
So how much does the research knowledge that I have?
Yes. Because you say you use research-based information to help provide the services that you do.
So when it comes to research-based is, just like taking the opinion out of, it's not simply, this is what I think you should do. This is like taking in the facts and saying, based on the facts, this is what I advise. Or based on the facts, maybe try this. And a lot of times, like with the high touch, I guess, everyone is an individual. So what might work for you doesn't work for her. So that's not high touch.
Well, that's it. That's it. I'm gonna say this, and then I'm gonna move on. I had a relative of mine that mentioned there's a difference between facts and truth, and I was like, I think they're the same, cuz. And she's like, no. She said, what's fact? She said, well, here's a small example. A man driving his car hits a female. He picks up the female and carries her to the hospital. But the friend saw that, hey, I saw your husband have another woman in the arms.
Ooh.
But the fact was, the person didn't see that you hit the person and you was carrying them to the.
Okay.
So it was fact, but it wasn't the truth.
But it wasn't the truth. Nice. And I'm
so I thought that would be nice to share when I look at the research base.
Yeah.
And I just was told that right before, I think yesterday, within 24 hours, a relative of mine shared that with me.
That's good stuff. I'm glad you're
and I hope it helps with what you're doing.
And just to let you know, everything I've said has been research based.
Correct.
And so when we talk about how to use it to help, being led by research is the best way to help.
Okay.
And so that's what the company Are You Motivated is based in research.
Are you motivated to
Are you
change?
motivated?
That's what you're doing. You're making a change. How much of those personal problems outside of the workplace actually come to the workplace?
Ooh, a lot.
A lot. What are some of the problems that you see the most? I know we kind of touched on them a little bit already.
Well, a lot of times you see financial stress.
Yes.
Which is ironic because you're going into work, the place where you make money, but then your home is impacted by the lack of money that you make.
That's that financial literacy, yeah.
You know, there's that. You know, bringing it into the workplace can be just the pressures, the things on your mind can impact you. And for women, internalizing and then possibly becoming cynical and feeling like there's nothing is going well. Right. So you could be thinking about childcare. You know,
childcare.
You could be thinking about childcare. You could be thinking about elder care. You could be thinking about home payments. You could be thinking about rent. You could be thinking
all those things
all
going
kinds of things that you have. A lot of these struggles within the middle and lower income households.
And that goes back earlier when you say that employers are under the impression that everything is all right.
Yeah.
In reality, most employers say, I don't give a damn. I'm paying you for this. You better find a way to go to Miss Sarah.
Sometimes that can be,
that's
that.
That's just what it is.
But
that's just what it is.
And it's also people kind of, you know how they say comparing traumas, you shouldn't do that, right? I think a lot of people compare stress too.
Right.
And so you have different stress that happens.
Comparing trauma, something like that.
Higher income workers and then middle to lower income workers. They across the board can have stress, but there's like good stress and bad stress.
Right. Well, I like how you say comparing traumas.
Traumas.
Just because this really don't hurt me, that don't mean. Are you saying that doesn't mean it shouldn't? It doesn't mean that it shouldn't feel the same. Like what hurts you may not hurt me.
Yeah.
And vice versa. That's what you mean by comparing traumas, correct? Okay. I'm learning a lot with you today. What about the intimidation factor? Let's hit on that a little bit.
The intimidation factor. Tell me more.
Yeah, when I say intimidation factor, when I do have these problems and my work performance may not be peaking, the intimidation for the employee is I'm going to, if you don't reach it, I'll find somebody else. But the intimidation of the employee actually going to management.
Well, you know, I had.
How do you approach that situation?
Well, I can speak from experience with that one.
Okay.
At one of the places that I worked, I had a supervisor who was just relentless in how she attacked me, and she didn't understand mental health. You know, because, for example, she would think that if we are talking and she's giving me direction and I'm writing down, I shouldn't be writing it down. I should be focused on her. But she doesn't know that I struggle with anxiety and also I'm intimidated by her. And so I'm writing so that way I can make sure I remember so that way I don't.
Yes.
And so with her, she's hard to approach, right? So I had to have a conversation with her. I had one a few times with her. Maybe you can't do that with every boss, but I had it a few times with her and she did not get it. She kept preying on me to the point that my coworkers were like, I don't know why she targets you. I ended up needing to go to HR because you know what? And I will tell you this, that I did learn with religion is you start with the person first. If they don't listen, you take someone else. If they don't listen, you go even further. And what I've seen in the workplace is if you don't document it, it didn't happen.
Right.
Okay.
Right. Kind of like the sexual harassment thing. If you don't document, it didn't happen. Yes.
And so one of the biggest things, one thing you can do is when you do have those conversations, you can send a follow-up. You can send an email. I really appreciated the conversation we had. You allowed me to, say what I was thinking, and we decided this is what we're going to do moving forward. Thank you. And then the next time you have the conversation, because it hasn't changed, you're documenting
again.
Thank you for talking about this again, although it has not been changing, whatever that is.
I know the intimidation when most, like in your case, you were very courageous to nip it in the bud and say, I'm not going to take the abuse. Mm-hmm. But in most cases, people are scared of the repercussions, the hostility that's going to be created at that point, that at this point you're walking on nails from that point on.
Well, that's a lot of where you got to take care of yourself. So it might not be something you can reach out and do because that's not either your personality or you don't feel safe enough to do that. But what are you doing for yourself? Because remember, burnout is not enough. It's having not enough. And so how are you filling your cup to be able to even, if you have to stay at this job, because the thing is, some people have to stay at their job. They don't have the luxury of moving jobs.
Right.
So if you don't have the luxury of moving jobs or departments, that is your supervisor. So what are you doing to fill your cup? That could be therapy. And a lot of times it is,
I see how your services help with both ends of the spectrum, dealing with the supervisor on how to react.
Because it's all about the individual, not the position. Right. And so, and it even could be life coaching.
I like that. About the individual, not the position.
Yeah.
I like that. About the individual, not the position. Mm-hmm. So, on our assess, present, I missed the D word. You say that kind of.
Oh, assess.
Present.
And help.
Mm-hmm. Briefly explain your program.
Okay, so assess, present, and discuss, and help. So it starts with the assessment. That is where there is a survey provided, a third person anonymous survey. We take those results and use the research that is.
How long is the survey?
Oh, the survey is we're looking 5 minutes or less.
Okay, 5 minutes.
You're clicking through. If you need to take time for reflection, I'm just saying you could go through it in 5 minutes.
Right. Is it a multiple choice or you actually type it out your responses?
Different types of responses that can be given. So that's the assessment. And then we take that with research and we see, okay, for this company, this is going to be how we address burnout. And then there's the P, the present and discuss. Now the presentation is a discussion. It's a facilitated discussion.
Is that with management or this employees?
With everyone in the same room.
Okay.
And then you have the help. And the help is what occurs during the discussion, the skills that you're getting, but the help is also after the discussion in the continuing education, the charge-up meetings.
So basically, when you're taking the survey, you're trying to analyze the commonalities from everybody's stuff, and you're ranking it from least to greatest. That's how that discussion is happening.
Taking the commonalities.
Taking the commonalities.
What are people struggling with? And what we can do is attack from that angle. Like, what are the needs from that angle? And are majority of people struggling with this? And that's why a good thing to have us more than one time, because we can touch on more things. We can touch on more avenues of burnout with more of the needs we've identified.
Okay. Your intervention training is that follow-up.
Mm-hmm. The charge-up meeting.
Pretty much, the charge-up meetings. Well, we're going to come to a conclusion today. And very informative information. I've learned about some things I can incorporate with my approach and communication. And then there's always follow-up. So at the end of the day, you're a company, which is, are you motivated? Mm-hmm. You are motivated to help provide a healthy and productive workplace environment. And if we can do that, I guess we can address that first $16 billion loss in employee productivity. Mm-hmm. So your services are very valuable. Thank you so much for being with us here today. And hopefully we'll get another moment with you in the near future, maybe to compare the different industries you've worked with, like what you've seen, like, whoa, like people that work on the stockbroker lounge, they are really stressed. It's all day as soon as they hit. Versus
to be able to
that nurse, to show a comparison. So thank you so much. Once again, I want to give thanks to my business partner, Mr. Nehemiah Harmon with Dynasty Solutions. And thank you, audience, for coming along with us today. And we definitely hope to have Sarah with us again to keep us alive and well.
Thank you.
So we're going to put it on you to provide us some health literacy.
Yes. Yes, thank you very much.
Because we definitely need it. Great information. Until we meet again, we are out with Common Hood. Another moment shared, another moment delivered. Peace.
Want to elevate your brand with professional audio and video? At the Gainesville Podcast Studio, we make podcasting easy. Our fully equipped studio and expert engineers handle everything from recording to editing to upload. It is a complete done-for-you podcasting solution. Book your session today and let your voice be heard. Visit GainesvillePodcastStudio.com today to book your session.